Hey, everybody, I'm Dean Takahashi. Welcome to the big show. I'm the editorial director at GamesBeat. We're here at GamesBeat Summit, actually, and Owen Mahoney just came off the stage. And Owen, tell us a bit about yourself, maybe a bit of the resume, since we're kind of maybe in between some announced things, I guess, right?
Sure. So I started my career in Japan and a long time ago now, in the mid-90s. I was in tech. I started my career at Apple in Japan and then ended up at Electronic Arts in late 2000. So it was over 25 years ago now.
Mm-hmm.
I ran corporate and business development for them for about a decade, a little less than a decade. I then ended up at Nexon, which is a company founded in Korea, based in Tokyo. They were pre-public when I joined. I joined as the chief financial officer, and we took the company public in 2011, so a year after I joined. And then I became CEO of 2014, was CEO for exactly 10 years at Nexon. We grew the company a lot during that time.
That was a good run from what size to what size, maybe?
Well, let's see. Total performance was 7.5 times, so it was a 23.5% CAGR. When I left, we were... CAGR means compounded annual growth rate. It's the average growth rate over that period of time. When I left, we were about a $22, $23 billion company in US dollar terms. It trades on the Tokyo Stock Exchange. We had about
I think you mentioned it was 8,000 people, or is that?
About 8,000 people, about $6.5 billion in the bank. So it was quite a bit bigger than when I started.
But you skipped over something real interesting there. Like, you started in Japan. Like, what? Yeah. How did that happen?
Well, at this point, it's a little embarrassing. But when I went to school, I grew up in San Francisco and in Silicon Valley. And when I was growing up, everybody was absolutely certain that Japan was going to take over the world and wipe out Silicon Valley the way that they had wiped out Detroit 10 years earlier. And my two heroes growing up were Steve Jobs and Andy Grove. Andy Grove, who ran Intel. And they talked and their hero was Akio Morita, the founder or one of the founders of Sony. And so, I sort of just got interested that way. I took a couple years of the language. I spent 6 months during college trying to learn the language. And I was good at some things, but language wasn't one of them. So it took me a while to learn the language. So I just moved there.
It sounds like that was a good investment for your career, for sure, though.
Well, I thought... For a long time, I thought it was, in hindsight, a total waste because my thesis didn't work out the way I thought it would, but it worked out even better in a lot of ways than I ever would have thought. When I started out, I thought I would end up, working in Japan and maybe for a Japanese company. It never ended up happening that way.
You've been very blunt about like the old ways of making games to the new ways of making games and what's different now. I think do you want to deliver sort of a snapshot of the contrast you see from the old days?
I guess the framing device for that would be, imagine you're me from 5 years ago or 3 years ago, and you're thinking about greenlighting a $300 million AAA game. A lot of things are going through your mind in that greenlight meeting while you're doing that, and most of them are thinking about not dying. Because if you a couple years later, if you have to announce to your board that you've made a mistake, the game hasn't worked out, they're going to remember nothing other than the fact that it cost you $300 million and you got nothing to show for it. And so if you think about that psychology, CEOs of public companies may look great in front of camera, or present company excluded. You may think that they're masters of the universe, but they're like anybody else. They're really, frankly, afraid of losing their job from their board or their shareholders, or getting an activist shareholder to come in. And so the prospect of saying, hey, I'm sorry, guys, I just burnt $300 million of very hard-earned post-tax money, is like really bad. So what do? They essentially try to avoid disaster, which means you end up oftentimes putting out a game that's very expensive and very derivative, meaning it ends up in a red ocean. It's not that, because of things like you want to make sure there's a market for the game, you tend to take fewer creative risks. And all the best games that come out of our industry, meaning the breakout hits, the Minecrafts, the Maple Stories, the original GTA 3, Civilization, they came from a very different setup. that had a very different set of incentives. And those incentives were like, hey, I want to play a really cool game. It doesn't exist. I'm going to make it. And it's going to be really awesome. And none of those things that I just described before about the incentives for big AAA game development exist. And I think we're seeing the output of all this today. The output of this is we've got a lot of derivative games, frankly, that I don't like playing, but they were very expensive to make. And so, as both a gamer myself and a former game CEO and on the boards of a couple companies, the question is, okay, well, how did we get here and how do we get our way out of this? So this is something obviously I thought a lot about at Nexon. We worked out a way to not have that problem, and it worked out great for us. But the industry seems to be grappling with that a lot.
Yeah. I guess Nexon had the interesting challenge of trying to succeed in the West the way it had in Asia, right? And it was spectacular success there, but it was tough to get games to translate over to the Western market. And I don't know if this was your primary mission when you're at Nexon, or there was maybe a different mission, but I wonder if you could talk about that, but also maybe throw ARC Raiders into this context too. Yeah.
Well, the primary mission was to make the company bigger and more successful. So it doesn't matter what you do. If you do that, that's kind of the high order bit. Yeah. But certainly, I was a Western CEO in charge of a Japanese company that was founded in Korea. I was one of only 3 CEOs of publicly held Japanese companies at the time, Western CEOs of publicly held Japanese companies. And so, a lot of people were looking to me to grow in the West. We used to have these debates all the time of like, on the one side would be, well, Nintendo has done it incredibly well. We should be able to do that with content and games that have been made in Japan. And then the other side of the argument was, if the game was developed in Korea, for example, our former CEO, the CEO who preceded me, would say, well, nobody in the, Americans don't want to eat kimchi in their hamburgers. Why are we trying to do that? And I think it was a very forceful and thoughtful way of actually raising the dilemma. My view was that there were certain things that were very, very powerful about Nexon that could be leveraged in a Western context. And we tried a couple different things. We had a couple failures. We had a couple middling successes. And then we had, another good success, and then one home run, and the home run was Embark. And Embark, ARC Raiders is certainly one of my favorite games. I've enjoyed playing it with you, and a lot of other people.
Awesome 90-minute interview experience in game.
That was fun. That was fun. That was, and we all enjoyed it a lot. But I think it's a great game, and I love playing it, and I'm looking forward to playing it after I get back from here. So they did some things that were very, very smart on the development side because they're extremely smart developers, and they had come out of AAA game development. This is largely the team that made Battlefield that I had acquired when I was at EA and many years before. But they understood these same problems of development costs running out of control and not, the marginal dollar of development cost was not resulting in the marginal increment of fun. And it's a big problem. And we had long conversations about this. They didn't want to do that anymore. They wanted a little time to develop a tech base that allowed them to move a lot faster at a much smaller budget. And we were happy to, or at least I was happy to give them that room because we knew if it worked, it would pay back in spades, and in fact did that. And so I think they were able to put their efforts really onto what appeared in the screen and the gameplay that you experienced, rather than painting every last tree in Photoshop, which is what a lot of large game teams end up doing.
Yeah, and they were efficient ahead of their time in a way, in that, like, I think the team was maybe 60 people or so, and did take
smaller for most
6 years, but still, arrived in a time when the costs really started to matter, I guess.
Well, I can tell you when we originally incubated them and then we bought the rest of the company, the costs already were very acute, and we were grappling with this problem. And I was like, this is not going to work in our industry. It's not going to work for Nexon. I don't care about nobody else seems to be grappling with this problem. We got to deal with it. And so we were very aggressive about dealing with that. But we had a great advantage that other companies don't have, which is we knew, Nexon has many weaknesses. It has several key strengths, and probably the most key of all those is Nexon knew how to make a live online game last and grow forever. And really worked well. And so that gave me the time that I could then hand to Embark and say, let's get it right. And so let's, the finals was out in about 3.5 years. And
they actually switched the orders of those
They switched the orders, Arc Raiders was supposed to be first. But it was very tangible for me. I could tell what was missing, what wasn't working. We could play test like crazy. And so it was a very easy decision. I will tell you, nobody outside, including my board, thought it was a smart decision. But
I remember hearing you talk about, say, the pressure to, say, not invest in this thing because it was just so unusual. Plus, it was taking a long time, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny how, like, in some ways, this was a conservative effort, not a huge team, but it was original IP, and those don't always hit. And there was still pressure to maybe end this thing. And I don't know what the alternative was, like go back to the old way of making games or do something else, I guess, right?
I think that's a great framing. I mean, that's exactly right. I mean, I don't want to be critical of the board and the shareholders at the time. They actually, the way the industry mostly works is when you're doing M&A is, okay, is the company you're buying accretive, which means do they have a profit, and is that profit adding more to your profit than what you're spending to buy that profit, right? That's the way you think about these things. And also, are you spending more or less than others? In the defense of our skeptical shareholders and our skeptical board, when we invested in Embark, they not only had no profit, they had no profit because they had no products. They were several years away from products. So therefore, they had no revenue even, right? Like there was nothing there as far as they could see that was tangible. But I knew that they were an incredible team that would do even better when they were the yin and yang of Nexon's ability to make a game last and grow forever was combined with their incredible ability in live game in new game development. So live game operations plus new game development. This thing is a match made in heaven. This is the most performative team out there. It was incredibly tangible for me the entire way because we were playing the game all the time. I could see the fun and I could also see what was missing. So it was very easy for me to make incremental decisions on investment that was maybe not obvious to people who would look at it from the outside or weren't as close to it as the way we were.
Yeah. And I guess you retired from Nexon really after 10 years, but before Arc Raiders actually shipped. But the net result seems very good. Like, 14 million sold, $40 each.
Yeah.
Great concurrency that exceeded that of both Call of Duty and Battlefield, right? And,
yeah, I mean, Battlefield was kind of a disappointment. Call of Duty didn't work out, I think, the way that Microsoft wanted it to.
And I mean, that's amazing for a new IP that was also wedged, 2 weeks after the Battlefield launch and 2 weeks before the Call of Duty launch. Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, well, then there was Marathon after it, too. To me, it's not why aren't we high-fiving each other and we're so smart and insightful and have such forethought. It's really, the question is why the industry isn't operating this way. I guess everybody can do this. I will tell you, I was there. The rest of the industry could do this. And we are seeing this. People are interpreting it as an indie game phenomenon. I don't think it's an indie game phenomenon. I think it's a group of people who have figured out how to make great games and bring them to market. And those great games are not only great, they're different from what else is available in the market. And when they do that, meaning like as simple as fun and different, they'll be like the other breakout hits that appeared on it. And like, why doesn't our industry spend a lot more time thinking about Minecraft? And because that was a massive breakout hit made by one dude, eating a lot of top ramen in this tiny apartment in Stockholm in the winter. And if we're gonna imitate what works, why don't we take a much harder look at some of these things and study them harder? And I think our industry, which is currently $200 billion, I do believe is going to grow a lot, especially if we start spending a lot more time talking about these things. But where does all the mind share go? It goes to the big companies with the big PR groups that get a lot of coverage by public equity analysts. And I think that those days, as you and I talked about when I, just when I announced that I was leaving Nexon, those days are over. And since that conversation, which was about 2 years ago, look at what's happened. And, there was a lot of skepticism about what I said. And, some people said after that interview, hey, Owen, you seem kind of negative. And I'm like, I'm not negative at all. I'm doing a victory lap. I had a great run, but but I'm very worried about what's going to happen. And since then, I think you've reported that about a third of the industry has been laid off or thereabouts. And I think it reflects, we just as an industry, we massively misallocated resources. Instead of focusing on the marginal polygon on the screen, we could focus on there's probably a better metric, which is the marginal increment of fun that goes into the game. And someone like Zeekers, who, as I understand, is one kid, he thinks that about that all day.
Yeah. So we're probably on our last question now, but I'll combine two things into one here. Like you have a message about AI to the industry. What is that? But also, what do you want to do next?
Well, on this second one, I probably don't have anything to talk about today. Sorry.
All right. But you're going to do something. You're not completely retired.
No, I'm very much not retired. But look, I think, so what do I think about AI? I said it in the room here. I think you can think about it as a tale of two cities. Are we as an industry going to end up like LA, Hollywood, meaning the Hollywood industry, or are we going to end up like San Francisco, meaning what the tech industry is doing? And I will tell you, they're dancing around the tree in San Francisco saying, aren't we lucky? This is the opportunity of a lifetime. Let's go flat out. And down in LA, I don't think anybody's
It's
happy.
hard to believe Hollywood is in worse shape.
Hollywood is way more depressed right now than the games industry is. I mean, I say this with it.
Nothing to laugh about, but
it's nothing to laugh about. And it's awful. And there's not anything that I see in Hollywood that I want to emulate or imitate or that I aspire to be. I mean, when I started my career all those years ago, some of my heroes were operating the big media companies, and that was at the dawn of the internet. And that crew has been wiped out. And I think, and they've got no second act. They've got no future method. They're kind of, what is left is groping about. Now, the games industry, I think, has a choice. We could look at it like, aren't we lucky? There's a ton of technology that's raining down on us. And aren't we lucky because someone else is paying all the costs to develop that technology for us, and now we can just use it. And we're going to be like Instagram was after all the broadband build out happened, right? Like Instagram was built very, very cheaply, or let's say Facebook, or what happened. The money was invested by the telcos that put $26 billion of fiber optic cable in the ground. And the people who benefited were Facebook and Wikipedia and Craigslist and YouTube and so on. They could just, with essentially the LAMP stack, which was in those days Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP. They could very cheaply build an incredible user experience, but someone else paid for the CapEx. We're in the same situation in the games industry right now. They're spending now trillions on CapEx build out for stuff that costs us very, very little. And okay, now can we take that? Can we make a better, cooler experience that didn't exist before? I think that's a really good question.
Yeah. Awesome. Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Nice to see you.
All right.